Oh man, I said I was going to start with the drum bus, but I'm not because there's something more important to note. You're probably like, what is this? What are these waveforms here? So, first thing I did, I think, was edit out all of the like extra noise from the toms. So the toms have like a ton of bleed from the cymbals, and also like you could hear the guitars through them and stuff like that. I didn't quantize anything. I'm just making that super clear. There's no editing here. I just cut out the silence because I really don't like using gates for this type of thing. I much prefer to manually do it. It takes a lot longer, but then I just don't have to worry about it at all. So like I guess I'll just solo the toms, and you can hear which is funny because you're probably like, wouldn't you hear that? Like the cutoff, the hard cutoff? But you really don't. Like if I solo the whole drums, like so it all kind of works, and I just like getting rid of that extra noise. I'm going to extend some of the tom. You'll see I have two channels here, one for bleed and one for just the regular tom. I'll explain that later. That's a really cool trick I found just to like get rid of the tom bleed. So I actually let me mute the bleed track because you'll hear like how bad the bleed is, especially if I extend the tom. Oh, well, he's only playing toms there. That was a bad example. I'm not cutting that. I'm not cutting that out. It's funny. Okay, this part I remember being pretty rough for bleed. So if I just extend this, you know, you can see the waveforms, like all of the other stuff that's being played. You don't need that, you know, in your tom mics. So if I just solo the toms. So I just got rid of that noise and then dealt with the bleed in a different way. I did the same bleed trick for the snare. I'll do that later. So let's start with the drum bus. I think that kind of makes sense, I guess. I'll just go plugin by plugin. So first thing I did was, this might not have been the first thing I did. I might have just put the EQ at the beginning, but I think I was just kind of minimizing some of the low end from the kick. And then I have compressor, which is over here. So this is a trick that I learned, I think from a Nolly video, like a mixing video, where instead of routing everything for parallel compression, like normally in a mix, you would have all of the drum tracks going to a separate like send effect or whatever, like running into a compressor, which is like a super hard compressor, like super slammed, and then you'd like mix it. You'd mix the signal in, so you'd have like really compressed, and then like from the aux end, and you could like balance it that way. I've always hated that. It's really annoying to set up. I'm kind of lazy. So I just always found it like really annoying to set up. Like sometimes things you'd have to like control how much bleed or like how much of each, how much snare is going into the aux end and then the aux end as a whole. So it was like a little complex and kind of frustrating to work with. And I found that he does this trick where you do these settings, specifically these settings, and with this HP link, because I think what this part does, I'm pointing at the screen like a fool, but this will make it, I'm pretty sure, where it won't put as much, it like rolls off some of the low end in the detection of the compressor, so it's not, so it just gets a more balanced compression. And then what you do is you do dry, and you can mix in that parallel compression effect just in one plugin, which is awesome. So like I'll just turn it off. I mean, you can hear how much slap attack is going on. And I think I just had it set, you know, somewhere around here. So that's kind of the big drum sound. I really like a big. I always start with drums because I think they set the tone for the rest of the mix. If your drums kind of dictate like how the whole song sounds. I think if you have like super raw drums, like if you're mixing some Midwest emo, you might not want it to be so like intense on the compression and everything like that. And then you kind of blend everything around that. That's how I like to do it. And then I also followed it up with a bit of channel strip action. I think I was doing just some slight EQ stuff on here, rolling off a bit. I'm starting to try to use, I guess, like analog mixing plugins, because I just feel like when I go into Pro Q or like a visual EQ, I'm like using my eyes too much rather than my ears. So that's just a thing. And then I got Pro MB, just a preset. I have no idea. I just kind of flick through, like most of the time when I'm doing this type of stuff, I kind of flick through some presets. Like I just want it to be balanced. And this is just one of the presets in there, and I turned it on and I liked it. So I left it. I don't know. I don't think you always have to do things from scratch. The presets are there for a reason. Same with this. So what I did here, this is Saturn. This is a multi-band like distortion or saturation specifically plugin. And I split the bands, medium or like lows, mids, highs. And then I just add a bit of tape saturation on them. There's this really great dynamics knob, which I don't know too much about yet. But you can get like these kind of like pretty good dynamics controls. I'll be looking into this more. But yeah, so that's what I did there. That's kind of the whole drum bus. And if you're able to hear it, I don't know if you're able to hear it, but you can hear like some of the amps, like guitars and the vocals and stuff from the mics. I just left that in. It's kind of just part of the sound. So I don't try to get rid of too much bleed unless it's like really bad, like with the toms. Like I didn't edit any of the like overhead tracks and like start cutting them and stuff. I just kind of left it, I think. So let's get into the kick. Kick. So if I turn everything off on the kick, super snappy. That's just like when I listen to Peeling Flesh Records, their kick is like super clicky like that. So I want to make sure I left that, but I wanted to beef it up to get that like huge feeling. So first thing is I just did a bit of EQ. I don't know, just rolling off some of the low end. I always use Saturn like on everything. I like I like when stuff is super saturated. And it's not super obvious right now. I think I keep the mix kind of low just to blend, like, you know, broken tube in there or whatever. And then do some EQ. Let's see what I did. Okay. I think this one I just rolled off some high end. I don't know. It just was what I wanted to do. And then multi-band to, I don't know, get tighter lows, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what I did for the kick. And I think for this one, I had some stuff on the drum bus. Like I think I have basic compression on the drum bus. And then I don't have to do as much on the individual tracks. But I don't know. I worked on this like a month ago, so I don't exactly remember. But I have a little stuff going on the buses for the most part, like while I'm mixing into them. I don't do top-down mixing on the master bus. I want to try it, but it's a little scary because I don't know exactly like the best settings for certain compressors. Like I'm not super well versed in that type of stuff. Like what's the best compressor to use for this? Is it a FET compressor or whatever? Like that's like pro mixing stuff that I'm just not quite there yet. So I don't do top-down mixing for that type of thing. Okay, the snare. All right, the snare was definitely a lot of work. So I have a snare bus. Looks like I didn't have anything on this. I don't know why that's there. And I think this one I just wanted to accentuate some of the high end. So that's that. That's the snare. The reason there's a snare bus is because of this bleed trick. So I will link the video in the description. I think it's I don't remember what the channel was, but I think it was the engineer of Seosin, and he's talking about how he got rid of like bleed on snare. So let me mute this. You hear that? That cymbal pop. Like if I play the whole mix and I mute that, terrible, horrible. I was like, what am I gonna do? And I was like, what how do I get rid of bleed? Because I don't really work, you know, with live mixes or even drive live drums that much. So I found this great trick. Essentially what you do is you do all your processing on the snare, like the main snare track, and then you duplicate the track with the exact same processing, and all you got to do is at the end you put a EQ.
I guess we'll call this what, a gating a snare
you
track.
roll off all the low end and you flip the phase, and then all the high end like gets filtered out in the bleed. So it's really cool. I can't explain it super well. I just followed the video, but that's with it off. This is with it on. So there's always going to be bleed, right? But it's just trying to minimize it as much as possible. pretty rough. So, all right, let's walk through the snare processing. Okay, so here's the snare track. Let me just turn everything off. Wow, got a lot of plugins, huh? Okay, so I guess I do have a gate on here. Yeah, the snare is so loud, and he's not doing like a lot of ghost notes or anything. It's kind of always just like full send. So that's just so I didn't have to do the editing on the toms. I should have done it probably manually, but I don't know. It was okay for the snare, but the toms, it was just too much. So it's a gate. Okay, and then I did some EQ, snare fat. That's what I like. Now their snare is really like pingy. That's like really important to the style. So I made sure to leave that and even tried to accentuate it a little bit while still having that like thwack, you know, super fat snare that I know and love, you know what I mean? So, okay, and then I got a distressor on here. Let's go back to this section with the snare. For some compression, I probably put another one on later. I like to do like 2 compressors usually for stuff like this, just so it doesn't have to like work as hard, I guess that's what they say. So the settings, I just do snare. That's the preset. So like I said, I'm not, you know, I'm just going with the flow here. So okay, so Saturn. Now I do like saturation. I like saturation on everything. Everything's got saturation. That's the saturation is the glue. Let me turn on the bleed. Well, actually the bleed channel won't work because of the phase. So that, and I have it mix at 70. I like to drive it pretty high and then mix it rather than do a little bit and leave it at 100%. It's just a preference. Okay. So this is just accentuating the bottom end, getting getting rid of a bit of that, like, there's like something around 800 hertz that is just like papery, but not in like a fun way, in a bad way. So get rid of that. Again, with the bleed not work, the bleed only works if it has the exact same settings. So okay. So that's a bit of EQ. What's next? Another compressor. As I say, a little bit harder, a little bit more with just not full mix. So you can see now we're starting to get pretty close to there. And then I started doing this on almost every drum. I got this great plugin. I've been sleeping on this one. It's the SPL Transient Designer. This thing is awesome. It's honestly not that expensive for how much I'm gonna use it now. I just got it basically right before I did this mix. So what this does is just designs the transient, makes it super punchy, and you can increase or lower the sustain, and then it's got a great parallel mix knob. So we'll hear what that sounds like. So now, and then I have a bit of reverb. Not much. I mean, it could probably be off, but I left it on. So here we go. And you'll notice that when I turn the bleed track on, it actually kind of makes the snare a bit darker, which I really like. And then in the full mix again. Cool. So let's check out the toms. Most of everything is on the bus itself. I do the same exact bleed trick technique. It's not a trick, it's a technique. Okay. Bleed technique here. The only difference is I don't really have a lot of plugins on the actual toms themselves, like I do with the snare. I treat them all at once. For this specific mix, I just chose to do that. And because of that, So let me do tom 2. Oh, let me turn the processing off. So that's what they sound like, no processing with the bleed thing on. But I did put like a nuke distressor compression on here to just get a bit more thwack. Let me turn that off. You can hear it more when all this stuff is on the drum bus or on the tom bus. Anyway, tom bus. Okay, same thing. I did a little gate in addition to the editing just to really make sure that I wasn't getting anything from the cymbals because they're super annoying. Then I have compression. Okay. And then EQ. So I like to, for toms, I like to get rid of this, say, like everything around 500. It's just like, just get rid of it. I don't know. I just didn't like that part of it. Bring it down to the low end. And then same thing. I like to do my sculpting EQ. I said this earlier in the video, I think. I like to do my scoping EQ, like creative EQ for tone and timbre with analog plugins so that I really have to listen to it. Because Pro Q can get away from you a little bit if you're doing that. So that sounds like getting rid of some of the top end, boosting a bit of like the 8K to get that hit we like. Boost on the low end, boom, boom, boom. Probably took it away, brought it back, but it all sounded good. Then here we go back with the Translate Designer. Now those are starting to sound like some toms, you know what I mean? Then Fresh Air, another great plugin. I have it at 1. I probably just could have left it off. That's okay. It's all part of it. And then a bit of reverb. I don't know if I needed the reverb, to be honest, but at the time it felt right. You know what I mean? So here we got the kick snare. And then the cymbals overhead tracks kind of bring everything to sounding like a real kit. So let's do that. So overheads. On the hat track, I got rid of like all the low end as much as I could. I don't really have this super high in the mix because I didn't really need it. So this was like the mic that was like on the hi-hat. Didn't really need it. It's just like for a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a bit of stereo imaging. So it's like sounds like it's on the left. You know, you can hear it. And then splash right. I think I was just treating with Pro MB. I was just treating a bit of the cymbals were very, what's the word? The cymbals were a bit harsh, you know. So I think I just treated a bit of that. So let's hear the cymbals or the overheads. I kind of treat my overheads like rooms at the same time a little bit. I don't get rid of all of the low stuff. I like a bit of it in there. I like to hear the snare. Like some people will do this. Like they'll cut off a lot of the bottom, like up to like 1,000 hertz or something like that. I don't usually do that, and especially because I don't have room. There was no room mics obviously, so I kind of left it in there. And I don't have much going on here other than a bit of EQ, like I just said. So I still like a bit of snare, a bit of tom in there for that natural sound. And then I just have another distressor. You can see that this is I think this is now my favorite compression plugin. And that's kind of it. And you'll see I've got stock Cubase compressor at the end. This is for sidechain compression. These are the settings that I use. I just use this for everything. I do this for the guitars too. Just tack as fast as it goes, release as fast as it goes. Sometimes I have auto gain or auto release on, but not really. I just like to get a few dB, I think, from the kick. So that's the drums. Let's just hear them one last time with everything on. So just on like process again, I don't think I did all of this process. I try to get the drum sounding as good as possible, like they should in like a, you know, a metal mix, like super punchy, super hard, a bit distorted. I like a bit of saturation. And then as I, you know, start, okay, I'm going to do the bass next. I tweak stuff as I go. It's not like drums are done and then bass and then guitars. It all kind of flows into each other, but I really like to start with drums as like the foundation of the mix. So yeah, that's the drums. Let's do bass next. So the bass tone was already amazing, and I tried to keep it the same. Same with the guitars. I didn't do too much. I did a bit on, I think, Rob's guitar a little bit, just to beef it up a bit from that little tiny crate. But like I tried to just respect their guitar tone as much as possible while fitting it into a mix, you know what I mean? And now for bass, this is a deep cut, like 2010 reference. There's a song by the band Attack Attack called Renob Nevada. Maybe someone will know. It has an insane bass tone. Like you can hear the bass so clearly, and it's so powerful in the mix, and I just love that. So I tried to do that for this mix too. You just hear the bass. I just really want you to hear the bass, that boom, 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 you know. I don't have a sub, so it's very possible that like if you have a subwoofer, this mix is like extremely blown out. I didn't have time to test it on like as much stuff as I could, but I like that meaty fat bass. So let's just hear what it sounds like raw. It's a little low. I mean, it sounds amazing. So I really didn't do much. So first, let's turn these all off. Again, compressor at the end for sidechain with the kick. I think what I was doing here was trying to get rid of a bit of the pick scrape. Like I like the pick scrape, but it was just a bit too much in this instance. And then some more EQ, just getting rid of some of the mud, as they would say, a bit more of that pick scrape. Same thing, just a bit more mud around, you know, between 300 and 500. Like I said, I didn't try to do too much to it. Usually, like if it's my own mix, like I'll crank this attenuate knob. This gets rid of a really nice amount of stuff that you don't want, or that I don't want. I didn't do too much there. So, and then I have multiband. Again, just a preset. I just flick through these, and it just helps get like a balance over the whole spectrum, the frequency spectrum. So that's what I did there. And then my favorite plugin, just to make the bass super punchy, right? And then a bit more, just getting rid of that stuff. So this is the final bass tone. Like I said, I didn't do too much to it. And then I've got sidechain compression with the kick, so we can hear. I don't know why it's not working. That's odd. Oh, there we go. Cool. So that's the bass. Like I said, their bass tone was just really good. It sounded great. I didn't do anything. You can see in the waveform here, he turns on some pedals, you know, to beef it up. And like part of the compression I was doing to make sure that that's a bit balanced, while also making sure that when that pedal goes on and it boosts the signal a lot, that I keep the intentionality of what he was trying to do and like make it like heavy as shit, you know? You know. So that's a thing. Okay, I'll just do the vocals as well here. So I cut out all the vocals, all the extra stuff. I left some at the end for like the video, you know, because it's cool to hear the crowd and everything. But let's see. So cool. Okay, so I just boosted it a bit with this volume plugin, stock and Cubase. You could see I tried to do the gate because I was like running out of time, but I had to just cut it up manually. And then I just used this plugin called Gain Reduction. It's a pretty old plugin by Joey Sturgis. And I've had this for many years. It just sounds good on screaming vocals. Now this is where I don't know what is correct for a live mix. Like, I just thought it sounded great. So I left it on. It's basically a compressor it's a super hard compressor with this cool sleigh knob, and then you can just add some beef to it, and it's just a bit of gain. I just added a bit of gain. So I mean, let's hear what he sounds like without this on. So I mean, I didn't really do anything there. Oh, I don't remember what the volume was at. So that's gain reduction. That's kind of the main bread and butter of the vocal sound. And then I think I just have this EQ in here. This is a vocal chain. This is a Cubase plugin, and it just has kind of everything you would need for vocals. And I just found, a preset squish pop vocal. I wanted it to be like pretty compressed. De-esser, probably didn't need it. I think this compressor's off. I just kind of flicked through the presets, what sounded good. Turned off the saturation, just the EQ. I mean, I probably don't even need that plugin. And then a bit of EQ to make it a bit brighter. And that's the vocals. So the vocals, again, nothing going on. Okay, so let's move on to guitars. Now the other mic was just announcing Rob to the stage, so I didn't do anything here.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Rob Scallon.
I mean, there's no backing vocals or anything, but I just did. If you're curious, I just put on again like this vocal chain to do make sure it was clear. So this let's move on guitars now. This is the editing that I did in the beginning for the sake of the video, not for the sake of cleaning up the performance. Just making that clear. No quantization, anything like that. Rob wanted to get rid of some of the feedback. I'll just leave it on. I like the feedback, it all sounds good. So nothing's moved around here. Don't worry. All right, what should I do? Let's just turn everything off. And I'm going to go through each guitar, starting with Rob's crate. This was really cool to have a guitar in the middle. Like I said, I'm going to try this on future metal mixes. I never considered this. I always thought guitars are on the sides, and then leads are kind of in the middle. But having an extra rhythm guitar in the middle, like triple tracked, is a really cool idea. And it sounds great. I think it's part of the reason why the mix sounds so beefy. And I boosted the low end, I keep that. I like that low end. And I almost, it's almost like a bass, like, or something. I don't know. So this is the crate. That's the crate. That's just straight up the crate. I don't even think he had any pedals or anything. It's just the crate. So awesome. Oh yeah, this breakdown. Okay. So I also have a ozone match EQ, and I just do a tiny bit of like mixing it with their guitars because Rob's tone was like so different, which is good. I want a bit of a different tone, but it was just sticking out in a way that wasn't musical, I guess. Like, I don't know. So I just did a slight amount of that. It was mostly to like beef up the crate a little bit. You can hear it. It sounds a little. Was it off? Then with it on. I probably could have done it just with regular EQ and just kind of get rid of that like little harshness. But I don't know. I just found that to be what I wanted to do at the time. Okay, so let's go through the guitar bus. So no treatment on their guitars, the left and right guitars. This is what they sound like. They already have a great tone. There's a bit of like, that I got rid of, and then with Rob's as well. Having that third guitar in the middle is so cool. it just fills like the whole thing with guitar. Okay, so I tried this. I don't know how it went, but I wanted to accentuate pick attack for like these kind of big like chugs, like so I tried this SPL transient design. I don't know. You can tell me if you can hear it. I don't know. I don't know. I like the scrapes, and I wanted to bring the scrapes out a little more. Next was some EQ. Just a bit of sculpting, getting rid of some of the low, muddy mids there. And then Pro MB, a little balance on the top end. So there's that. And then let's see. I got a bit of Saturn at a tiny mix. Again, probably didn't. Like, there's a lot of stuff I'm like, dude, does this need to be on? I don't know. Probably not. But I did it anyway. I think I added a bit of saturation to the high mids. So it's at a tiny mix percent too, just for a bit of extra bite. So then next, everybody's favorite plugin, the Distressor, again, with a mix. I think I did dial this one in by ear. It's possible I copied some settings from a video that I watched. That's kind of how I learn everything. You know, I watch those like Mix Academy or whatever videos on YouTube, and then I'm like, I'll just try that. That's kind of what I do. So, and then more EQ. Now I'm getting rid of, I think I'm starting to get into just notching a few things that were bothering me. So you can hear, I get rid of, it loses like a tiny bit of bite, but it's just getting rid of some slight nasally frequencies. I'm actually hearing a new one now that I'm listening to this again. A bit of a hiss, but so that's that. And then I think I just brought down a bit more high end. Now this looks like a move that I would have made when everything is playing at the same time. I'm trying to, this is a horrible habit that I have where I just do everything soloed. I'm trying to not do it. I try to listen to the whole mix in context. It's so tempting to just dig in, you know, on a snare for 2 hours, treating it, and then you play it through the whole mix and it sounds terrible. So this seems like something I probably did while I was listening to the whole thing. Just this kind of like random like 3 dB reduction at like, what is it, 9.5K? So that's that. And then I think, what did I do here? I just brought up some volume. That's it. And then same thing, I've got a side chain going to the kick. We'll see if it's even on. I'm pretty sure it should be. Yeah. So that's kind of the whole mix. Ooh, those are, now something that probably happened when I was doing this is I moved some volumes so that it was louder. So it's probably not exactly the same as it is in the video anymore. Like the vocals there were like way louder than they're supposed to be. So let's go to my favorite part right here. Oh, and then they have great samples. So I didn't do anything to the samples. I think I just rolled off a bit of low end on them. And then I like cut them up and just, you know, turn up the volume if some of them were a bit low. Now they also have 808s, and I didn't hear any snare bombs in their samples like they usually have snare, like these huge snare bombs when they play live. I didn't get those, so that's why they're not in here. There's an 808 track. I muted that for the video because like if I put this, let's get like Pro Q on here. I can't even hear them on my speaker system because I don't have a subwoofer. I mean, you may have heard that, but you could see like how low it is. So I just felt like I was like, I'm just gonna leave them out. So that's what I did. So yeah, they got the samples.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers.
Now watch this drive.
Now watch this drive.
So that's the mix, and I guess we can move on to the master bus now. I am not a mastering engineer. I don't know anything about mastering. If you ask me what LUFS should be, I know they're supposed to be -14, but I'm not even convinced that that's true, to be honest. So, like I said, I've watched videos and I try to implement stuff that they're doing. You might want to borrow some stuff that I've done or not. Maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. So I'm just going to do it. I start with Fresh Air. I love this plugin. I think it's free. It just adds, you can add a bit of that modern shine to your mixes.
We must stop the terror. I call upon
Let me go to a better part. I just tweak it and I hear stuff at the time and maybe I don't now. EQ, roll off this low end. I might have just gotten rid of that frequency that I was hearing. Yeah, that's probably, yep, I got it. I caught it again. Look at that. I just pulled it out of the whole mix. So, and then this is another thing I know from, I think there's a video about mastering. It's hard to find stuff on mastering from like, legit mastering engineers. So I try to find videos. I think I found this one from Joey Sturgis video with doing mastering for an Oceano song. And these are the settings. I don't remember exactly why, but I think it's like I put a bit of compression on, but not too much, just enough. So I think I have it hovering between like 2 and 4 dB. So what I'm doing here, instead of now once I'm getting into the mastering stuff, if I start turning it on and off, it kind of like stutters the audio a bit. So I'll try to do the dry and wet knobs so you can hear the difference. So let's listen to it without it. You can hear it just kind of like, you know what I mean? It's just a nice kind of, I guess you'd say glue. See, I saved the preset mastering glue. Now I have that. And you can copy these settings. I'm like 90% sure they're exactly stolen from, not stolen, but they're just, from that video. So, and then I do Pro MB. I've been doing this lately. I've been using Pro MB as like a leveling tool. So I just find a preset that sounds great. I still feel like I'm not at the point where I'm like, oh, you're destroying the dynamics. Like, I can't quite hear that yet, I think, at this stage. Like I said, I'm still learning about like mixing as a thing, and like, you'll watch videos where people will be like, oh, it just kills the dynamics, and then they turn it on and I'm like, it sounds better. So that's what I do. So I think that just gives me a nice balance on the overall frequency spectrum. Here's another Saturn thing. So same thing, I like that tape saturation just on the high end, basically. And then I just do a mix. When you're doing like a mastering style stuff, got to be careful. You do have to be a bit careful, because unless you don't want to. I mean, I could crank this up. You know, let's see what happens. So let's just turn this on. I don't know, 26% sounded good at the time, so I could probably crank that up if I wanted to. Yeah, so once I turn the driveway up, you can hear it's like really distorting. So just a bit sensitive there. Okay, and then I think I did one last thing of a bit of sculpting. I did not do much. I must have just gotten rid of this here. I don't know what I was thinking. It's like going through this whole thing. I'm like, I don't, why did I do that? I don't know. Okay, this plugin might destroy my computer. We'll see. Okay, so EQ. Now this EQ is like barely, like the way that it's set, it doesn't do your moves, even though they maybe look drastic. Like if I pull it all the way down, it's not that much. So and I try to be careful at the end, because you're changing everything. You know, if there's a real issue in your mix, I try to go back to the source and fix it rather than fix it everywhere. Because if I do this and I pull down the low end, it's going to pull down the low end on the kick and the snare and the bass. Maybe it was just the bass that was the problem. So I got another EQ pulling out some frequency. You know, dialing that back a bit. Bit of resonance. Okay, and then I do an imager. Stereo width. I don't even think it's doing too much. And then this is another one from a mastering video. I think just a bit of exciter at the end.
逆らいながら奪われて、流されながら見失う。誰もがその戸惑いの中から学ぶのだ。ああ、本当の私に帰ってゆきます。麦 100%、 大分麦焼酎二階堂。今でも空に憧れた日々を思い出す。教科書の地図をとうに失ってしまった。僕の一日が、僕の一生が空っぽでありませんように。私は麦 100%、 大分麦焼麦焼酎二階堂。近道は遠回り、急ぐほどに足を取られる。今、我々を取り巻く自然界の一部が不思議な身動きを始めようとしています。そうです。ここは全てのバランスが崩れた恐るべき世界なのです。これから30分、あなたの目はあなたの体を離れて、この不思議な時間の中に入っていくのです。我々を取り巻く自然界の一部が不思議な。そうです。ここは全てのバランスが崩れた恐るべき世界だ。
々を取り巻く自然界の一部が不思議な身動きを始めようとしています。そうです。ここは全てのバランスが 我々を取り巻く自然界の一部が不思議な身動きを始めようとしています。そうです。ここは全てのバランスが崩れた恐るべき世界なのです。これから30分、あなたの目はあなたの体を離れて、この不思議な時間の中に入っていくんです。今、我々を取り巻く自然界の一部が不思議な身動きを始めようとしています。そうです。ここは全てのバランスが崩れた恐るべき世界なのです。これから30分、あなたの目はあなたの体を離れて、この不思議な時間の中に入っていくんです。
なぜ彼は来たのだろうか。諸君にこの説明をするには、今から3ヶ月前にはるか彼方の宇宙で起こった事件を知ってもらわねばならない。地球から言えばいて座の方角に向かっておよそ4万光年、ガイステス太陽系の第5惑星にあたる通称 E 惑星。ここ地球の
逆らいながら奪われて、流されながら見失う。誰もがその戸惑いの中から学ぶのだ。ああ、本当の私に帰ってゆきます。麦 100% 大分麦焼酎二階堂。今でも空に憧れた日々を思い出す。教科書も地図もとうに失ってしまった。僕の一日が、僕の一生が空っぽでありませんように。私は麦 100% 大分麦焼酎二階堂。近道は遠回り、急ぐほどに足を取られる。始まりと終わりを直線で結べない道がこの世にはあります。迷った道が私の道です。大分麦焼酎二階堂。思えば守れない約束ばかりだった。会いたい人と会えない人、風の便りはいつも風向き次第。どうかタイムマシンが発明されませんように。目を閉じるだけで十分です。私は麦 100% 大分麦焼酎二階堂。私の記憶にいつも後ろ姿で現れる人がいる。あの頃、あなたが口にしなかった言葉にいつか私はたどり着くのだろうか。ずっと麦 100% 大分麦焼酎二階堂。夢を見るなと笑われる。膨らんで破れて近づいて遠ざかって、
見事に鮮やかに幾度も幾度も旋回を続けるのでした。
今日夢の中で目を覚ます。
生活なんてできませんよ。ありましたね。こうなったらもう行き着くところまで行くしかありませんな。
Okay, and then when I turn on the limiter, it's going to get really loud. So let's see. I'm going to just turn down the output, I think. And that's the whole thing, you know, from top to bottom. So again, these modes, I just kind of looked up like what's the best one for metal. You know what I mean? I just borrowed some settings. I probably used a preset here. And the threshold that I can hear. I can hear that, you know, but putting it back where it was is like, I like to see a bit of hitting the limiter, but I could probably do more. I just don't want it to be pumpy, you know, but I want it to be like, to look right when it's a waveform. So I don't want to like hear like pumping, but I want it to be like pretty loud and like, you know, the limiter, I want the limiter to engage a little bit. And then this is, you know, people do this, you do it at like -0.1 just so it removes any clipping issues. That's the whole thing. That's the whole mix. Let's go to my favorite part, and then we'll do a little outro. So, yeah. Okay, so that is a walkthrough of the Peeling Flesh live mix from Rob Scallon's video, joining the band Peeling Flesh. It was super fun to be able to do this. If you are like a mixer, master person, and I've done something so horrible, please let me know. I'm still really learning. Like, you know, obviously I know some things. I have a lot of plugins and stuff going on, but I'm still learning about that like I'm trying to break into that next, you know, level of being a mix engineer, because I do really like it and it's very creative. So hopefully that helps some of you if you're looking to learn this type of stuff. But yeah, let me know what you think, or if there's anything interesting or anything I could have done better. I'd love to talk to people about this, because it's so cool that people like specifically liked the mix and like made sure to leave a comment about it. I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, thanks. Maybe I'll do more videos like this in the future if I do other things for Rob or whatever. So thanks. I guess I should plug something. So I make music under the name Dovetail. I made the whole OST for our game Fretless that just came out on July 17th. It's on Steam. You can get it right now. And there's a soundtrack for that. And then I have just an album that is nothing like this. That's more like IDM, you know, chill, Aphex Twin style ambient music. If you want to check that out, there's a link in the description for everything. So yeah, thanks for watching.
I've heard a quote of yours about your lyrics, and it is, "Yo, I'm not gonna lie, this shit don't mean nothing."
No.
Do you still feel that way, or are there some songs where you're like, man, this one is really personal and like beautiful to me lyrically?
All my songs are just a primal outage. Every Peeling Flesh song is about a different way of beating the out of someone. Like, that's literally just what it is. It's just primal, just caveman, just bunga bunga dismemberment.
Hello, welcome. It's Hardlore time. How you doing, Bo?
Doing very well, Colin. How are you today?
Outstanding. We've got an incredible guest today. It's a beautiful week on the show. This is highly awaited, highly anticipated. We announced this episode 3 months ago, and we've been counting down the days ever since. We've got the legend, the man, the myth, the legend here, Peeling Flesh vocalist DeMontiel Harris. How are you, sir?
Doing good. Happy to be here. How y'all doing?
Doing good.
Outstanding.
Where are you
Even
at?
better now.
Where are you at in the country, DeMontiel?
I am in Tulsa, Oklahoma, T-Town.
T-Town. That's the first time I've heard that. Yeah, I saw you in Tulsa 2 years ago, and it kind of blew my ass off at the Flyover Fest there.
Oh yeah, the VFW is crazy.
Are you from Tulsa or are you from Oklahoma City?
From Tulsa, born and raised. I'm the only one in Peeling who is Tulsa-based.
Okay, the rest are OKC, and they needed you so bad in the band that they were okay with you staying in Tulsa?
They said, we don't care about an hour and 45 minutes, and so we'll take it.
That's right. I love to hear
it. Is Peeling Flesh the biggest death metal band out of Tulsa of all time?
Death metal band for sure. Death metal slam adjacent band for sure. We do have
perfect
death metal slam bands here, but I think we're probably the draw.
How do you find this avenue of extreme music in Tulsa and the rest of you guys in Oklahoma City? What leads you to where you are now?
Yeah.
Honestly, it was all a kept secret. It was one of those things that, before slam is what it is now. It's kind of like that thing, kind of just tell your homies, show them a little slam band, like, you rock with this? How do you feel about this?
Sure.
But we all played in different bands, played all over Oklahoma together, went on tours together. There's actually me and our drummer Joey. We found out we were like, in the slam when our hardcore bands were touring, and so like we got to get back and do something at some point in life. And COVID happened, bands fell through. We were like, let's just do something we want to do. Let's just do a slam band.
So you were in hardcore bands prior to Peeling Flesh?
Yeah, that's honestly all I've ever played. I had like a little metalcore adjacent project, but
what kind of hardcore are you into?
I'm honestly, don't tell nobody. I'm a big Oi fan.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
No, but love kind of came up a little bit off like power violence grind-ish. So anything like fast, heavy, big fan of. I really love the band Love Child. They were a band that broke off of Cersei. But,
Okay.
Yeah, but anything like that adjacent. Oklahoma scene growing up was like, it was real grimy. Like our Oklahoma scene was like, we just had like a grimy style of music. It was like a little different hardcore, but it was, a little bit of everything mixed. So that was my introduction to it.
Oklahoma punk too, I just feel like is like kind of crusty, kind of like,
yeah,
just kind of that shade of beige.
Are there a lot of hard moshers in Tulsa and Oklahoma City?
I'm biased, honestly. If you ask me, the hardest.
The hardest. Is that why you got banned from a venue in Oklahoma City?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, for sure.
Can you tell me? Can you elaborate on that a little?
We just have we have a lot of big corporate venues. We don't have too many. We have we have our VFWs and our we have our little spots, our DIY spots that can pop up. But other than that, we have a lot of big venues. And one day we were at we were actually a Hatebreed show. We were watching Hatebreed, and they were not having it. They were not having it. Kicked all my friends out. It was a whole little thing outside. But we were like, hey. It was actually on my birthday, so we were.
Oh, happy birthday! Yeah. I bet they'd love to have Peeling Flesh play now, but you can't go.
We came right back after and played like a couple of months later. And
okay, good. Well, so you weren't really banned. You, the guy, DeMontiel was banned. Yeah. Peeling Flesh is fine.
They said that black dude right there with the dreads. We don't know who he is. He's banned. And then I showed up the next day, and they were like, "Damn it."
I mean, that's kind of how Hatebreed started. Right, it was Jocelyn getting kicked out, and
we're banned. So we're everywhere.
Yeah.
So were you singing in these hardcore bands before Peeling Flesh, and what were they called?
No, I am the designated bass player of Tulsa. I'm just the bass player that just anytime homies needed me, I'm the bass player. But I had a band called Give Way, did bass in that. Had a band called Third Strike. Had a band called Self Inflicted. Played bass on all of those. But there's some other bands that I might be known for filling in for, but those weren't, officially.
So is Peeling Flesh the first band you ever sang in?
Yeah, 100%.
Whoa.
Okay. So your intro to writing lyrics as a vocalist is not really writing that many. Pretty cool.
Basically, I helped write lyrics for my other bands, but I never really. I might be like a backing vocal here and there, but nothing like the vocals I do now. I did kind of more like a hardcore adjacent.
How'd you figure out you could do that? What you do in Peeling Flesh?
I've been able to do the vocals I do since I was 14 or 15, just a kid.
Was it like a bit you would do? Like, was it ever a punchline? You know what I'm saying?
DeMontiel's doing the voice again.
There he goes doing that shit he does. No, it's one of those things I would actually just be around the house just making weird noises, be in the shower making weird noises, just
good acoustics.
I've always been into slam, so it just never had an outlet for it. So it's just kind of it's one of those things where I didn't know how to actually do it.
Do you lean more slam or more hardcore in your musical preferences?
Ooh, more hardcore. I think honestly, all of Peeling probably leans more hardcore.
See, I like that though. I think that's cool. It's. I don't know. It keeps you grounded in the scene you want to be grounded in, while also shows hey, but we can do this. We're able to do this. just cuz.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think where I see that the most is in the structure of Peeling Flesh's songs.
Great point.
Because a lot of slam music is 5.5 minutes long and kind of meanders structurally, whereas you guys have like a blueprint and a path in each song. We'll get to Peeling Flesh really soon. I want to learn about early DeMontiel. You know, I want to learn about while you're in Give Way and doing all these other bands. Is this when Miss May I tried to cut your leg off?
No, that was Peeling's first like big tour ever. Peeling's first big tour with Ryan Neff, who plays bass and sings for Miss May. I was doing merch for Chelsea Grin, and we all don't know how it happened. Freak accident. Was lifting up their giant trailer as I was walking by, and the corner of the trailer just caught my leg and just tore a hole in my entire leg.
Holy shit.
It was gnarly. As we're trying to bandage it up and everything, I'm from Oklahoma. I'm a little country, so I know how to bandage a wound. You feel me? So I'm bandaging up the wound, and meanwhile Ryan Neps is like about to pass out. He's like, that's so much blood. I can't do this. I'm like bandaging myself up, like, stay with us, Ryan. Stay with us.
Did you have to go to the hospital?
No, it wasn't that deep. We just super glued it.
Did it scar? It's got to be a gnarly scar.
Tulsa medic.
Yeah, how's that look now?
It's definitely there. It's not the worst, but you know, it was enough to make people queasy.
Okay. So when and how in your life does Peeling Flesh start? And is this group of guys, these are all guys you said you've been playing around or in bands with forever?
Yeah. Peeling Flesh started about, when did we start? I want to say 2021, maybe.
That makes sense.
2020, where, you know, COVID band. I know everyone says it wasn't supposed to be serious, but, you know, it was just us. Joey was he's the Tulsa drummer. He's just him.
He's a machine.
He's unbelievable.
He's a machine. He's our program drummer.
Yeah.
He's then Soto. I've been playing in bands. He played kind of in a little bit of a different part of the scene. He kind of played in the more, you know, deathcore, kind of death metal adjacent scene. Mm-hmm. And Jason, our other guitarist, he was from another kind of. He was from the same part of the scene, but we all came from different bands. Like Joe was in a metalcore band, Soto's in a deathcore band. Jason's in a beatdown-esque band, and I was in a hardcore band. But we all threw each other in the group chat, and we were like, all right, what's everybody going to do? They were like, D's going to do vocals, Joey's going to do drums, and we were like, all right, bet.
And here you are. You fucking did it.
Yeah.
Is the goal off the bat immediately like, okay, when shows come back, we're going to hit the road hard and do this for real?
Oh, 100%. Not at all. Honestly, we were. It was just kind of like a bedroom thing. We were just in Soto's studio that he had already had because he mixes and masters and produces bands in Oklahoma. So you know, we were just messing around in the studio, throwing all these stupid slams and samples over songs. And one day we had enough homies to where they were like, hey, you want to tour? And we were like, we guess. And we ain't stopped since.
So these are you're talking about the early days of Slamaholics Volume 1?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Unbelievable.
I want to ask you about the sampling, because a lot of times it fits so perfectly with the rhythm and the BPM of the actual song. Obviously that doesn't naturally happen. So who's got their ear looking for samples and finding stuff and then chopping it up to make it match?
It's me, Soto, and Jason. It's me and both of the guitarists. We're the ones that are you know, the super just into just OG Memphis rap. But Soto and Jason are probably the ones who will change the BPM and make it actually go to it. It's cool. Crazy how quickly they can do it now. At first it was kind of a process, but now they just wow, bam, 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 bam. It's we treat it like a second instrument. We treat our samples like
It's kind of it's like they're the other singer, because a lot of what you're doing vocally is like kind of just to be rhythmic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like the sample is telling the story a lot of the time.
A little bit, yeah.
And then you're going, yeah, exactly.
I'm just agreeing. I'm just ad-libbing with it.
Can you tell me about early tours that you did after Slamaholics Volume 1?